What is up, Steelers Nation? Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk, the AST call-in show. I'm super excited to get this one going. We are, what is it, 36 hours away from the 2025 NFL draft. The Pittsburgh Steelers still sit at 21. Trades are starting to float around. We're getting some rumors about quarterback moves and the Pittsburgh Steelers going here or there. They showed last second interest in Ben Morrison out of Notre Dame, a name that, I'm not going to say was my guy in January, but was my guy in January. So much happening. Tomorrow night is going to be massive, which means that I'm super excited for your calls because, what better day to go through the AST call-in show to dive into everything you guys want to hear than the day before the 2025 NFL draft. Shout out to all of our members and to everybody who called in. Super excited for this one. We've got some good ones for you guys. If you want to become a member, you could do so by clicking the link in the description below. Once again, thank you guys a bunch. And with that said, let's dive into it.
My fault. I think I got cut off at the end. Yo, what's up, All Steelers Talk? My name's Andrew, and crazy story. Just want to say first, I had the pleasure of running into Noah the other day while I was out on a walk with my girl. And just for anyone listening, want to say he is a great dude, just like he is on the show.
Thank you.
And just a quick shout out to the show and all the hosts. I think it's the best Steelers content on the internet, and that's where I love to listen to all the new news about the Steelers. But now that that's out the way, I think I just have two questions, and both are somewhat draft related.
Yep.
So my first question would be, if the Cleveland Browns and New York Giants don't draft a quarterback, and this is assuming the Titans have taken Cam Ward off the board.
Yeah.
Then you move down to the Raiders and the Jets.
Yep.
And both of them also don't take a quarterback. Would you consider trying to swap picks with the Panthers for the 8th pick to try to pursue Shedeur Sanders? And if so, what would you give up? Personally, I feel like I would trust in, our Steelers organizations, like the valuations on the guy. They would probably have a better feel for him than we do because they've gotten to talk to him a lot.
Yep.
I also think if the Panthers were willing to make a swap, I would maybe be inclined to offer maybe a future draft pick, in 26 for him. If we feel like that's the guy. But just want your opinion on that, because I know the Saints are going to be very interested in him. And then my next question would be concerning the trade rumors with TJ Watt.
Two big ones right off the bat.
Personally, I would just ask, if TJ were to be traded, what would you need in return for him?
The world.
And I ask that because I want TJ to be a Steeler when we're really winning again, 100%.
Yeah.
Which is kind of why I like the idea of being more aggressive in drafts. If we feel like we find our quarterback, we feel like we find our this position, to get aggressive and go after him, which we've done in the past to sometimes success, sometimes kind of a mistake. But I know after signing TJ, we won't be in a position of having salary cap. Yo, what's up, All Steelers Talk? My fault. I think I got cut off at the end. But just to summarize,
somewhere Eddie the First is going
hopefully
nuts.
We re-sign TJ. I know we won't have much salary cap to mess with to, make a big quarterback signing, like a 40, 50, $60 million guy. So I know that it would be ideal to find our guys through the draft. So worst case scenario, if, we don't take that route or we can't land a quarterback or whatever in the draft, what would be the needed assets to trade for a guy of TJ's caliber, who is
Yes, sir.
he's an all-world player.
Yes, sir.
And like I said, this for me would be worst case because he's also, I mean, it's TJ Watt. So, anyways, that's all I had to ask. Thank you guys so much, and y'all have a great day. All right, thanks.
Shout out to Andrew. First off, it was good to meet you, my friend. Was super pumped. I'm always thrilled whenever I get to run into anybody. That was awesome. And if you live in the neighborhood, I mean, you're going to see me all the time, especially when it's nice out. You know, we live in the best part of town to go walk around. Let's start with Shedeur Sanders trading up with the Carolina Panthers, so on and so forth. Where we sit today, okay? And we're 36 hours away from the NFL draft. I mean, by the time this thing goes out, it'll be 32 hours away from the NFL draft. Shedeur Sanders is on the Steelers list. He's on the Steelers big board, and they probably have a first-round grade on him that's good enough to say if he's there at 21, we have to heavily consider him. But I do not think Shedeur Sanders is number one on the Steelers list. I don't even think he's top 5. And where they sit right now, the Pittsburgh Steelers are very comfortable drafting a defensive tackle and saying, we just won the first round. That was a good pick. We made the right call in round 1 by going and getting a defensive tackle instead of trading up for a quarterback. I don't think Shedeur is that high on their list. I don't think Jackson Dart is that high on their list. I don't think any quarterback in this year's draft is that high on their list. This is a year where you're already talking about next year's quarterback class, and the Steelers, Omar Khan included, are acknowledging that next year's class is good and that they've spent some time scouting next year's class, which tells you that the Steelers, at least this is my guess, are all in on finding a quarterback in the next 2 years, but it doesn't have to be this year per se. It's not a guarantee that it's going to be this year. Now, when it comes to trading up for Shedeur Sanders or anybody else with the 8th pick, what would it take? It'd take a first rounder next year. It'd take your first rounder this year and your first rounder next year most likely gets the deal done. That's probably good enough in a draft class that isn't that loaded, that isn't super heavy, but you're still moving up 13 spots, 12 spots, 13 spots to go get a quarterback. I wouldn't even think about it, to be honest with you. I would imagine it takes next year's first round pick. Instead, what I would do is look at it and say next year's first round pick can be used to help go get a quarterback next year. And I get it, win now. I get it. I hear it, but I don't think that the Steelers view Shedeur Sanders as the savior of the Pittsburgh Steelers or anybody else in this draft class, and they're being cautious about that situation. Now let's talk TJ Watt, because that's the other side of this. TJ Watt, in my opinion, is going to sign a contract with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I would imagine it's $41 million a year. That's how I'm looking at the Pittsburgh Steelers and TJ Watt. Like, they are in a spot where, yeah, there are rumors, things are probably not the greatest, but both sides know this is going to get done. And there's almost nothing you're going to do to change that. I don't think you're going to trade him. I don't think trading him's on the table. I would never in a million years trade TJ Watt. I think he is the reason that defense is as good as it is, and he is the key component to keeping it that way. That's how I view TJ Watt. I'm not trading him. I don't think that they're trading him. What would you get for TJ Watt? Anything you asked for. Anything. I would guess TJ Watt goes for a first round pick and some minimum. That's my guess on TJ Watt. Where we stand right now is like, if TJ was traded today, no contract in place, no injuries, nothing, minimum first round pick and some. And I think the Steelers would get that, but they're not going to trade him. I know that one. They're not going to trade him.
Hey, it's Maddie.
Maddie.
My question is, again, about quarterbacks, because, that
Always
seems to be the hot topic with the Steelers since, I guess, this time last year. But why should we put another Band-Aid on a situation? Why should we go into the season with Mason? I get he can win us a couple games or whatever, but why realistically do we think, or do you think they should just hold off another year? What if the quarterback class next year sucks? like right now they're projected to be great, but what happens if this year Garrett Newsomer from LSU or Lenore Sellers or
Yep.
I'm trying to think of some of the other ones, they just start, have a bad season. Then we're in the same boat again. Why not take a flyer? I understand that, maybe in the first round is not the best idea, but with the picks we have and how deep the running back and the defensive tackle class is, we could afford to grab a quarterback in the first round and still build everything else at the same time.
Yeah, not as well, but yes.
Again, the Eagles built while getting Jalen Hurts as well.
Jalen Hurts
They
is a
didn't
third-round
just
pick.
build so they could plug Jalen Hurts in. They had Jalen Hurts and were building at the same time. So I feel like you kind of have to do the same thing, and we kind of have to put our own spin on it. And honestly, I'd be okay with Sanders, Dart, or Milrow at this point, and probably let them sit. But I'm picking Dart because I want my 15 minutes. Not just, I'm just joking, but still. What are your thoughts on that?
Shout out, Maddie, dude. You always make me smile. All right, let's break that down because you have good points. They're good points there. Why would you put another Band-Aid on it? What if next year's quarterback class sucks? I agree with all of it. I also think that you need a good team while you have your quarterback. I agree with that too. And I think the Steelers have a good team. They just need a quarterback. Here's my thoughts on the matter. When it comes to putting a Band-Aid on something, I agree that the Steelers need to stop putting Band-Aids on it. But if the worry is next year's quarterback class might stink like this year's quarterback class does, I don't understand the difference between picking one or waiting a year to pick a quarterback in a bad quarterback class and taking that risk compared to taking the risk of what if they're great. I just don't think that if you're going to acknowledge one side, you have to acknowledge the other side. And if you're saying, well, what if they stink a year from now? What if all these guys don't turn out to be great and the Steelers quarterback class is mediocre like it is this year? Well, why wouldn't you just pick a quarterback in a mediocre class like this year? I agree, except for the fact that if you acknowledge the other side, you're taking equal as a risk that it's better. And if it's better, great. If it's not better, there is no difference. You've just waited a year. And in that year, you would have just simply band-aided a problem because that's all Shedeur Sanders and Jackson Dart are, is a shot in the dark in a mediocre class that you don't end up with another Kenny Pickett, that you don't end up, and I'm not saying that they're exactly the same. I'm just saying that you don't end up with a guy that in 2 years is no longer a starting quarterback. That's what you're taking the risk on. I don't think that the Pittsburgh Steelers need to rush the quarterback move. I think they need to make the right quarterback move. And I think they need to take the right risks at quarterback. And I think that's how you get out of this situation. Because that's the one thing about the quarterback position is the longer you make mistakes at the quarterback position, the longer you wait before you're great again. And I get it. Nobody is patient enough to want to say, well, we could go a year and say 2026 is our year to get a quarterback. That doesn't sound fun. That sounds like 2025 is going to stink. But if the Steelers make the wrong quarterback decision this year and avoid next year, and then 2 years from now, they realize they stink and they have to do it again, that's 2 wasted years. And you are back to ground zero. Whereas, if you wait a year and it turns out to be great, okay, there it is. You have one bad year left before you're ready to go. And if you're wrong, or if I'm wrong and the quarterback class stinks, there is almost no difference except for the fact that instead of starting the bad clock again this year, you started it next year and you're in the same boat. So I hear what you're saying. I do. But if you're acknowledging the bad side of it, you have to acknowledge the upside side of it and say that if you're weighing the risk reward, the long-term outcome of this looks much brighter in a year than it does today.
Noah, this is your favorite Marlon Lewis. I'm always in the
Yes,
chat.
sir.
I
Yes,
have a
sir.
question for the call-in show, just real quick. Do you think that the quarterbacks that we could potentially draft, regardless if it's Dart, Shadur, Milrow, or whomever, would be coming into a lot better situation than Kenny Pickett did? In which
Yes.
case, even if they have or are around the same talent level of a Kenny Pickett, maybe, just maybe, they'll be in a lot better situation, and it could look a lot closer to Brock Purdy than it did Kenny Pickett. Again, I do think that some of the things that Dart does, being able to look off defenders and stuff, I've been able to see that from Chase Daniels and Dan Orlovsky's tape. Those things I didn't see from Kenny Pickett. I know his arm
I'll
strength
tell you
and
why I'm
whatnot
laughing in a minute.
leads you to believe that. But again, arm strength in the league is a little overrated when you look at the physicalities. I mean, yeah, you can get a Josh Allen, but you could very easily get a Jamarcus Russell or Anthony Richardson as well. So, obviously, I know everyone's just kind of reaching and picking at straws right now whenever it comes to what the Steelers need. But in my opinion, I do think that defensive tackle is a situation that we could figure out next year because of the amount of nickel and dime that's played. We're not going to have 3 defensive tackles on the field way too much. So we should be looking more for a nickel than we should be looking for a defensive tackle. And since Cam just came off another All-Pro, Keanu Benton is still ascending. Yeah, we could go for a depth piece, but why would you waste a first on a depth piece? That's not, unless you're just stacked everywhere and the Steelers aren't. So Will Johnson, yes, that would make sense, but defensive tackle, I don't think anybody is Jalen Carter level game wrecker. And us using it on a defensive tackle because we just watched the Eagles do it doesn't make sense because we're not the Eagles. I also think I would like to get your opinion on if you think that the defensive issues that we've been having the last couple of years isn't just on Tomlin, it isn't just on PJ, it isn't just on TA, but it's also on our offense because it's been so piss poor that we go 3 and out the first 3, 4, 5 possessions that we play elite teams. Our defense gets tired and then they get gashed. So in that opinion, would you say that it would make sense to get a quarterback that can at least move the ball? And do you also agree that had Kenny came into the league in the situation with DK, George Pickens, and a young established offensive line that we've continued to build around with a new offensive coordinator and Tom Arth, wouldn't that be a lot better situation as from Jackson Dart to get the most out of him?
Yeah, but all right, Marlon, I appreciate you. I'm going to fire back on a lot of this, but I appreciate you. Now, I understand, again, what you're saying. Like, I get everybody's opinion here when it comes to the quarterback and having to say, you need a quarterback. You don't win Super Bowls without a quarterback. I hear that, okay? But Kenny Pickett isn't going to win you a Super Bowl if he walked into Pittsburgh today. In 2 years, he's a middle-tier quarterback. That's all he is. And he's not going to be any better than that. And arm strength is important because if you're throwing the ball deep to George Pickens and DK Metcalf and Calvin Austin and you can't get it there, well, that's an issue. If you can't get it there accurately, that's an issue. You know, you have to sometimes, I mean, Aaron Rodgers is 41 years old. Tom Brady was 43 years old when he retired. And both of those guys had phenomenal arms. Peyton Manning was a guy who didn't have a phenomenal arm. And by the end of it, it was bad. It was real bad. He won a Super Bowl and got to fade out the way he should, but it was bad. You need arm strength. I do agree that there are other things that are equally as important, but you do need arm strength, and you can't overlook it to fit, a narrative. You can't just say, well, it's not good, and that's why Kenny Pickett, it's Matt Canada. No, Kenny Pickett had a very hard time reading the field. Very hard time. I think Jackson Dart does better than Kenny Pickett in that scenario, actually. My problem is this. Defensive tackle right now might be the only position that the Pittsburgh Steelers are heavily targeting in the NFL draft or in the first round of the NFL draft outside of running back that you are looking at going, this guy is going to be a game wrecker. This guy has game wrecker potential that you can already see. It's the only position that in a very mediocre class stands out that way. So you do want that guy. And you want that guy because your defensive front is a massive issue on the defensive line. Massive. I mean, you have nobody to help stop the run, and Keanu Benton isn't big enough to play nose tackle. Montravius Adams certainly isn't going to help the run defense at all. And now you're in a situation where you need to stop whoever is running the ball for whatever team, Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson in the playoffs, but you can't because you have nobody in the middle strong or big enough to stop them. That's the problem that you run into. You have to look at that scenario. You can't, I understand that it's a dying breed in the NFL. I get all that, but it's not a depth piece. It's a starting nose tackle in a situation where the Steelers desperately need a starting nose tackle. And in instances when they're getting run all over and people are complaining, oh, the defensive line is a problem. There's no run defense. What's going on? They can fix that. They have an opportunity to fix that. And it's going to go a long way in a league where the quarterback issues are less and less by the year because there aren't as many good quarterbacks, but there are phenomenal running backs in the NFL. Too many phenomenal running backs in the NFL. Also, when it comes to the Eagles, I get that the Steelers aren't the Eagles, but the Eagles are a prime example of what the Steelers would like to be, and that's a team that wins through physicality and through their defense. Run the football super well, have a reliable quarterback, good wide receiver options, and a dominant defense. That's what you're looking for. And the Pittsburgh Steelers would like to do that, and they're very close, and I think a defensive tackle puts them over the edge to have an opportunity to get there. Now, when it comes to the quarterback position, I think Kenny Pickett would be better in today's situation compared to Matt Canada. That was the worst situation he could have ever walked into. I'll acknowledge that. But again, Kenny Pickett is never going to become, nor ever would become, a Super Bowl worthy quarterback, a guy that's going to beat the big names in the AFC or in the NFL as a whole. He's not going to be that guy. Jackson Dart has that same amount of upside. Shedeur Sanders has that same amount of upside. That, yeah, they'll get you to the playoffs, but they're probably not going to win you a Super Bowl. You might be left with not a Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy's way up there, but Derek Carr is an example I like to use. A Geno Smith. He'll get you there, but he's not going to do too much. That's who Jackson Dart and Shedeur's upside is right now. And Dan Orlovsky and Chase Daniels, I laughed at that because I was actually just talking to a scout yesterday. And in that conversation, they said, it's hilarious how the former bad quarterbacks in the NFL love Shedeur Sanders and especially Jackson Dart, but scouts don't love them. And I just, take that as you will. But I think the NFL's view is much different than Dan Orlovsky's and Chase Daniels. Again, if they drafted a quarterback, it makes sense. I don't think that you're missing on a quarterback in a bad quarterback class to take a good defender. I don't think that that's a miss at all. That's just my opinion on the matter. I do think Kenny would be better. I don't think he'd win you a Super Bowl. I think the Steelers would be a little bit better than they are right now because they'd have a quarterback in place, but chances are next year they're drafting a new one. That's actually that's exactly what would happen. Kenny Pickett's walking into his final year of his deal. He's still not a Super Bowl worthy quarterback. The Steelers are not going to pick up his fifth year option, and they walk into this season saying Kenny Pickett either has to become elite or we are going to draft a quarterback a year from now. That is where the Pittsburgh Steelers would be most likely if Kenny walked into this scenario 4 years ago.
Hi, Noah. Broderick Wallace calling from Quakertown, Pennsylvania.
Yes,
I've had TJ's jersey since his rookie year. I think he's the best pass rusher in Steelers history. No question. That being said, should we really be entertaining the idea of paying a soon-to-be 31-year-old more money than Myles Garrett? Just because. TJ is not a versatile player at the moment.
Yeah.
I'm having a hard time with this. Let me know your thoughts. Thank you.
Broderick, appreciate you. I know this one was from last week. I was excited to get to it today. When it comes to TJ Watt, he's worth the money because TJ Watt is dominant. I mean, a bad year for TJ Watt was Defensive Player of the Year finalist. In a situation where TJ Watt's TJ Watt, Myles Garrett's a Defensive Player of the Year finalist if he plays a game or 17 games. Doesn't matter. TJ's got to earn it. TJ's got to actually earn it. And, I give a lot of praise to TJ Watt for fully acknowledging that this year has to be different and he has to make changes. And from what I've heard, I don't know many people in TJ Watt's circle, but I know some people around the league that know people in TJ Watt's circle. And, maybe we're playing telephone at this point, but I've heard that TJ's working his butt off to figure this thing out. And if he's working his butt off to figure this thing out, I have a lot of confidence that he's going to. I would pay TJ Watt $41 million. I don't think that's a big deal. In 2 years, in 5 years since his last contract, the league has gained $100 million in salary cap. It seems to be growing more and more every single year. And by that, I mean the gap from 2024 to 2025 and 2025 to 2026 seems to be getting broader. So that just means that it's just going to keep going down. $41 million now, not that big of a deal. Just like 35 last year wouldn't have been that big of a deal. I think it comes out to like 14 or 13% of the Steelers salary cap this year. It's not that big of an issue to sign him to $41 million. And some guys are worth a risk. TJ Watt's worth a risk. TJ Watt's a guy that if a year from now he had the best season in NFL history, nobody would be stunned. We're just nervous because right now he's 30 years old and needs a contract. But again, once he's paid and that big season comes, which you got to expect at least another, maybe 2, 3 more to come, hopefully 5, everybody will be sitting there going, yep, nope. That was worth it. That was worth the money. And, so-and-so, Alex Highsmith just got paid $42 million a year on the Buffalo Bills or something because his contract was up. That's where we're at. I don't think it's a big deal. I don't think it hurts the Steelers salary cap-wise over the next couple of years. I think they're in a good spot to be able to say we are young and we have our pieces and we don't have a quarterback bill. So we could do a bunch of other things, including TJ Watt, and I think it works out. And I think he's worth the money.
Hey, Noah, this is Dave Moore calling back from Buffalo, New York, representing the 716.
Yes, sir.
In spirit of the draft week, wanted to ask another draft question. I'm sure you're not getting sick of hearing any draft questions.
No, I'm pumped.
I wanted to know what you thought a successful draft looks like for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Good question.
This whole offseason has been an absolute roller coaster debating draft strategy with people saying stuff like, they need to draft a wide receiver round 1, and then they go and they do the DK Metcalf trade, and now they don't have that second round pick, and they have DK Metcalf, so it kind of shifted, and now people are saying maybe draft a quarterback, a whole bunch of people saying draft a defensive tackle. There's obviously a lot of options out there, but I just want to know what you thought they kind of needed to do as their draft strategy. What's your opinion on some of the things that they need to come away with in order to make you feel like they got better?
Yes, sir.
And to branch off of that also, I was wondering what your opinion was on avoiding reaching on a quarterback or a wide receiver or something like that. Look forward to hearing from you. Thanks.
Shout out. Great question. And everybody's sneaking the quarterbacks in there. I know it's big quarterback talk. I know it's huge. Like, I don't want everybody to get disappointed when they pass on a quarterback at 21. And I'm not saying it's destined to do that. I'm just saying that Mike Tomlin openly admitted yesterday that he likes to create smokescreens during the draft process. And there is no bigger smokescreen than Shedeur Sanders. Now, maybe that means they like Jackson Dart and they're hiding this. Maybe it means that they like Jalen Milroe and they're hiding this. Maybe it means that they love Shedeur Sanders and Mike Tomlin is just playing that big of a game where he's going, you might think that I'm lying, but I'm actually telling the truth. Who knows? So much going on with Mike Tomlin. Okay. I don't think anybody should ever reach on a player. I don't think it's the right move. I think best player available is always the best option or a better option than reaching on a player at any position, especially quarterback, because you reach on a quarterback at 21, that's a 3rd round value on a guy. I get it that you have a 1st round pick, but you pick at 21. Your 1st round value is significantly lower than where a quarterback should be, wide receiver, etc. Just doesn't work out. It leads to more Artie Burns and Terrell Edmonds than it does Minka Fitzpatrick's and Joey Porter Jr.'s and so on and so forth. When it comes to their draft strategy, the Steelers should approach it saying exactly what they've been doing the entire time and saying the entire time. They need a defensive tackle because they need to go young and they need to replace Larry O and they need to fix their run defense and they need to have a replacement plan in place for Cam Hayward because I get it. He was an all-pro a year ago, but what if he falls off a cliff this year because Father Time is undefeated and you never know when it's coming, ever. You need to have a contingency plan. That's the best contingency plan you could come up with this year. But if they're not doing that, best player available fits the bill. Whether that's Matthew Golden, Omarion Hampton, Ben Morrison out of Notre Dame, Nicky Muware out of South Carolina, whoever it is. I hear that, and that's the way I'd be going. Now, when it comes to the rest of the draft, go after a quarterback at some point. Go get a quarterback with some upside and say, screw it. Let's see if it happens. Let's see if we can make it and pull it out of our butt and find a quarterback in the third round that works. Great. I'd be okay with that. I think you go from defensive tackle to a combination of who's the best player available, quarterback, running back, or wide receiver. And then you do the next one again in the next round. And then you do the next one, the last one in the third round. From there, add an offensive tackle. From there, maybe add a safety or a corner to add some depth. But you start with defensive tackle and or best player available. And from there, you go quarterback, running back, wide receiver. Who's the best name on the board still? Let's take that one. Cross that position off. Next round, who's the best player on the board? Cross it off. Keep going. That's what you do. Find the best quarterback, the best running back, the best wide receiver you could find at that point in the draft when the third, fourth, and fifth round comes around. That's my advice to the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think that's their best draft strategy heading into tomorrow night.
What's good, Noah? Main man Darian.
Yes, sir.
Membership was gifted to me, and I wanted to say I appreciate it, but that's neither here nor there. The question I have for you, my guy, is we see so many quarterbacks in the draft, and we have so many people say this quarterback is good at this quarterback is good at that. But I want to know from your perspective, because we had two quarterbacks last year who were very different. Russ was a better passer, and Justin was decent at passing, but he was more athletic. I want to know what style of quarterback kind of fits the mold of Arthur Smith's type of offense, because Arthur Smith's offense is based around, a strong run game with inside zones and play action passing, and I just wanted to know what type of quarterback best fits that mold, and what style of quarterback would you rather have? Would you rather have, a quarterback like Justin or a quarterback like Russ? And whichever style you pick, what type of quarterback best kind of fits that mold so that the scheme can kind of be ran a little bit well? Because as we've seen in the past couple of games that Steelers play, quarterback is not exactly the best scheme fit, then there's really no success to be had in the offense. So really like to know your thoughts, and stay up, my guy. Peace.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you. Great questions. Who would fit or what strategy, what player attribute, we'll say, what mold of quarterback fits the Pittsburgh Steelers offense and Arthur Smith? I'll start by saying this. I don't think that you should fit a quarterback to your offensive coordinator's play style, because your offensive coordinator is probably going to leave before anybody else. What I do think is a good offensive coordinator like Arthur Smith can adapt to whoever his quarterback is. I truly do think that that's a thing. I think that Arthur Smith did a pretty good job with Justin Fields, to be honest with you. And people say, well, he did a terrible job in Atlanta. Yeah, 100%. But where's Desmond Ridder these days? Nobody even knows. When it comes to who they should get, I think the quarterback that fits what the Steelers would like to do is a mobile quarterback with a go ball material. So that fit Justin Fields. Justin Fields had a ton of, you want to launch it up, he'll throw it up. He'll make it happen. But he could also take off. I think Justin Fields was a perfect example of what the Steelers were looking for. If Justin Fields was a rookie, they'd be all over him. They wouldn't let him leave. They need a guy who could run. They need a guy who's mobile. They need a guy who could escape the pocket, who also could keep his eyes downfield. And at the end of the day, a guy who can make those longer to intermediate throws and say, find Pat Freiermuth over the middle. Find DK Metcalf deep over the middle, because DK in the slot is dangerous. Find George Pickens. Find Calvin Austin on a streaking route. It doesn't matter. Like, that's where you're going with your quarterback. And you could get a lot of guys that throw it short. Russell Wilson's biggest thing is he didn't throw it short because he couldn't see. But you could get a lot of guys that can throw it short. And that's kind of like a given, while the others are added bonuses. I think a mobile quarterback with the deep ball who could process the field quickly is the way to go. Now, who fits that in this year's class? I don't even know. I don't think anybody, to be totally honest with you. Cam Ward fits that more than anybody else. If we're going realistic options, I mean, Jackson Dart is the closest you're going to get. Jackson Dart's a guy that has mobility, has a decent arm, like he can make throws. I don't think he processes the field as well as you hope. And I am nervous that the Lane Kiffin offense has ruined him, because that's a real thing that happens in college football. But I do think that Jackson Dart probably fits that mold more than most. He's mobile. He's more mobile than Shedeur Sanders. Shedeur doesn't fit it at all. Like Shedeur is not, physicality wise, like the actual attributes of what he carries, all mental. None of it's physical. Jackson Dart's got the mobility. He's got like I don't want to say he's got a strong arm, but he's got an okay arm, good enough arm. Jalen Milroe's got the deep ball, but he's got nothing else, like nothing else except for athleticism. He would be probably number 2. Tyler Shuck, I'm not in on. I'm just really not. Quinn Ewers would fit the bill a little bit. He's got a massive arm and a little bit of mobility, not enough, but a little bit. I just don't think his processing is there at all. So those would be, Jackson Dart leads that. Quinn Ewers might be second, and then I would go Jalen Milroe to fit that mold of like mobile with the strong arm. I think that's what the Steelers are looking for. I think those guys are there, but I don't think any of them are top tier enough to make them, make you jump out of your seat and go, you got to go get that guy.
Hey, Noah, Chad, California. Hey,
Yes,
couple
sir.
questions. Great show yesterday with Chris Carter. First
Thank
question is, Milroe was invited to the draft day 1.
Yep.
Do you think he or the NFL thinks he's going to go first round? Normally, they invite people who are going to go first round. Number 2, how much pressure is on the Steelers in round 1 to make the right pick?
Oh,
and who bears
great question.
that pressure? Tomlin, Khan, or I guess as Tomlin would say, the collective. And number 3, what are you better at, chess or golf? Thank you, man. Great show yesterday. Hope to hear from you soon.
Yes, sir. Thank you. 3 great questions. 3 great questions. We'll start with Milroe. I think he was invited with the anticipation that he could be a back end of the first round pick, which is exciting to have somebody there, but also day 2. Like a lot of these guys, some of these guys get invited for day 2. That's why they're there. The NFL still likes to make a spectacle out of the second day of the NFL draft. The commissioner still goes up for the first couple of picks. They think that he's going to go right there. So I would guess the end of the first, early second is where they imagine Jalen Milroe going. And because of that, that's why he was invited and accepted the invite to go to the NFL draft. Quarterbacks are huge. They love a good quarterback in attendance. When it comes to the pressure of the NFL draft, another great one. The pressure is massive on the Pittsburgh Steelers to make this a quality first rounder, because Broderick Jones isn't playing well. Troy Fautanu found himself in a position where he was injured for almost all of last season. The Steelers need a good first round pick. They need a good first round pick real bad. And it's a bad draft class to get a good first round pick, but they need one desperately. Pressure's huge. Pressure's on Omar. Pressure's on Mike. Pressure's on the collective. But I'm going to tell you right now, it starts with Omar Khan, because he needs to have a quality pick. I don't think it's high enough to be worried about anything, but it's on Omar. He's got to have a good pick. Mike's got to be able to have a team in place where he's got a quarterback and he's got a defense and things don't suck. That's when the pressure's highest for him. But that first round pick is Omar. It's definitely Omar. I don't think it's high enough to worry, but it is on Omar more than it is anybody else. And then the third question, chess or golf. I'll tell you this. I went to Grandview the other day. I shot 9, quick 9, Easter morning, said, screw it, let's go. If my boy Christian is on here, we linked up. I didn't know him. Course was crowded. I was playing by myself. He was playing by himself, and his girlfriend was there watching. And we said, all right, let's link up, have a day. I mean, par was 34. I shot 37. I was pretty proud of myself, to be honest with you. That was the closest I've ever been to, I get it, 9 holes, but a 9-hole scratch golfer. That would have been crazy. Birdie 3 times, chip in on the 9. It was a great day. It was a great day. I will say golf. I'm never, ever that good, but I will say golf for sure.
Hey there, Noah. This is Steve Cornfield calling in. Just want to give a shout out to you. Hope you're having a great day. Nick, if you're listening to the show, I hope you're having a great day and good job on the job opportunity. Can't wait to see what you do in the future. So I guess I'm calling in with, oh man, I'm blanking now. Let's see here. Oh yeah.
Happens.
Okay,
Happens
so
every day.
I'm kind of going back to the Rudolph and the Aaron Rodgers thing. So, okay. The Steelers are looking bad because they're sitting here waiting on Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
Now, with that said, say we do sign Aaron Rodgers and it takes till August or what have you. And then we sign him and then he blows the season for us. Then how do the Steelers look after that? I feel like it's a no-win situation whether he signs, blows the season, or if he just keeps us on the hook and just waits to the last day to announce retirement. We're a laughing stock either way. Now, I think getting out of that, I know you're going to say, well, between, Rudolph and Rodgers gives us the best opportunity to win a Super Bowl if we make it into the playoffs.
He does.
I don't see that. I see
Rudolph
maybe even having a particularly better season than Rodgers, just in comparison, with how Rudolph was back when he was on our team, and he did great with less. Now he's going to do even better with more. I don't know why people can't see him as potentially being a playoff type quarterback. I think after a full year under our belt, he really could. Now with that said, are there better quarterbacks out there? Sure damn there are. Now, I just don't get it. Like, I think you should just cut Rodgers out, save that money, pay TJ, not even 41, pay TJ 45, really lay into Miles. Like, yo, this is what we got. Like, look at the comparison, the Browns. So the Steelers, they don't win without TJ. We've seen stats that show that. Where are the stats that show that the Browns win comparison with or without Myles Garrett? There isn't one because their wins are always low, with or without Myles Garrett.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
So we got the better, defensive player of the year. Of course we do. That's hands down without a doubt. Pay the man, cut Rodgers out, save the money, pay the people that we have what they're owed, let Rudolph run the show. And have a great day.
My man. All right, look it. I don't want to be that guy. I hate that I am that guy. But if we're being realistic about the situation, okay? Mason Rudolph looked good for 3 games. And that's awesome. I'm glad that he looked good for 3 games. I hope that Mason Rudolph comes in here. He's the one guy that in my eyes deserves to be the franchise quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers and for it to all work out and for him to be able to finish his career in glory at 29 years old. And here it is. This is the beginning. I hope that's what happens. I do. Like, I don't not hope for Mason Rudolph's success. I like Mason Rudolph a lot. I think he's a really good dude. I'm hoping that it works out. But if you're going to be realistic about the situation, if you're going to look at it from you gotta bring the facts and everything into play. Aaron Rodgers is the best thrower of the football in NFL history. He's a guy that last year sucked, and might suck this year. There's a possibility, no doubt about it. But you want to know who also sucked last year? Mason Rudolph. Mason Rudolph was not good on a bad team. And if the excuse is, well, the New York Jets are a better team than the Tennessee Titans, yeah, you're right. Barely. I mean, the Jets have more talent, certainly. But at the same time, they blew up their entire coaching staff and their front office, and things were as hectic as humanly possible, and their offensive line was atrocious, and Breece Hall took a step backwards, and there's just nothing good there at all. Tennessee sucked too, but you're working on 2 quarterbacks who sucked last year, and you have to acknowledge both of them sucked last year, if that's how you're going to break it down. And then the year before that, Rodgers didn't play. Mason had 3 good games. I just don't think that there's not enough there. There's not enough tangibles there to say Mason's going to be the guy. I got a ton of faith. You got to have faith in Mason Rudolph. There's just not enough there. Rodgers has a whole career of being a 4-time NFL MVP, like winning a Super Bowl, all of these things. Yeah, and you have to bring that into play. You have to account for it. Now, again, do I think they should be holding on? No chance. I mean, it just morale-wise, the Steelers are in a place where they look atrocious. They look like idiots. They're a laughing stock of the NFL right now, and it's just going to get worse. And the day that he signs, the day before training camp, you better win the damn Super Bowl because you're going to look so much worse if you stink. So much worse if you stink. I agree with you. I think the downside of Aaron Rodgers is massive. Massive. Way bigger than Mason Rudolph. I think the upside also way bigger than Mason Rudolph. And I wouldn't, personally, if it was me, Rodgers wouldn't be on my team. Wouldn't even be considered on my team. But the Steelers are well aware of everything that's going on. They were well aware of everything that's going on. They look at this as a completely different light. They want an answer, obviously, but they know that was happening, that his family issues were happening. They know that they've only made one offer to him. They know that public perception is bad. They know it all, and they're okay with that. Again, I'm not saying I would be, but they are. And that's just, at the end of the day, that's where it is the Steelers are comfortable. And until they're not, anything we say does not matter.
Hey, no, Steve Cornfield again.
You're coming.
I also forgot to throw this in there. I just got done watching your Wednesday call-in show, so I'm calling now last week right after the show. Yep. So my future foretelling here is that, hey, a week later, day before the draft, Aaron Rodgers still has not signed. What are we doing? Steve
All right. He hasn't. You're spot on with that one. He hasn't. He's not gonna. My prediction is 2 days before training camp. That is when Aaron Rodgers signs with the Pittsburgh Steelers. But there is talks right now from Diana Rossini that they might be interested in Kirk Cousins. And I don't think that's better. I don't think it's worse, but I don't think it's better. And if it's Kirk or Mason Rudolph, I'm going Mason Rudolph. I'll tell you that much, because I don't think Kirk wins you a Super Bowl. And I'm not giving up draft capital for him. I think that one's wild, but that's where the Steelers are. And I mean, again, you just got to take it every day as it comes. Steelers are waiting until maybe tomorrow night. We'll see what happens. All right, we're gonna finish it off with this one. Here we go.
Hey Noah, it's Ernie Jones. I get a question. I watched the meeting with Omar Khan and Mike Tomlin, and Omar Khan was saying something interesting about how he wants 4 quarterbacks. Yep. Do you think it's more likely for them to double dip in the draft or get a veteran and a rookie, or a rookie and a rookie? See you later. I love your show. Take it easy. Keep on trucking with these news. Let's go Steelers. Bye.
Let's go. Here we go. Great way to end the show. I appreciate that. That's a good one. When it comes to 4 quarterbacks, the Steelers always bring 4 quarterbacks into training camp. That's just always been their process. I mean, you could go back to Mitch Trubisky, Kenny Pickett, Mason Rudolph, and 2-time Super Bowl champion Chris Oladokun, who was there through 3 passes, but he was there the whole time. I would imagine that's going to be Skylar Thompson this year. It'll be Mason Rudolph. It'll be, if I had to guess, Aaron Rodgers and a rookie. That's my prediction for the Pittsburgh Steelers. What I will say is this: if they do not get Aaron Rodgers, it is going to be another veteran. They've already made that clear, that the Steelers are looking at it saying they want a quarterback in the NFL draft. They're going to take quarterback in the NFL draft at some point. I would imagine it's the 3rd to the 5th round, somewhere in that ballpark. But at some point, they're going to take a quarterback. When it comes to the next guy, that 4th guy, or I guess the 3rd guy, because you're going to draft a rookie. Skylar's going to be your 4th. Skylar Thompson. Mason Rudolph's going to be your 1. Who's going to be your 2 or your 3? It'll be another veteran. They said that. Omar Khan said at the league meetings, he told me that, you're looking at another veteran, whether it's a trade, whether it's free agency somewhere. I'll say this: Kirk Cousins being on the table is probably real. I don't think it's significant, but it's probably real. And I would guess that if Atlanta is willing to budge and make an easy trade happen, maybe the Steelers are interested enough to make it happen. Wouldn't rule them out at all. Maybe Carson Wentz is the name to watch. Maybe Will Levis gets traded during the draft and the Steelers are looking there. I don't know the direction they're going to go, but I would guess that it's going to be a veteran. It'll be a rookie, Mason Rudolph, a veteran. I'm still guessing it's Aaron Rodgers, but it could be anybody else. And then Skylar Thompson. That's going to be their four. I don't see it turning out anywhere else. And the Steelers are not interested in double dipping in the NFL draft right now. Maybe in an undrafted free agent guy, but they won't spend another draft pick outside of the first one that they use on a quarterback. All right. With that said, guys, I'm heading out of here. Thank you guys so much for calling into the AST call-in show and to jumping on and checking out the AST call-in show. Appreciate you guys as always. Shout out to all our members. Shout out to everybody who called in. It was a good one. It's always a good one. I always have a blast doing this. It's my favorite time, my favorite part of a Wednesday morning. If you want to become a member and call into the AST call-in show, you could do so by clicking the link in the description below. With that said, I'll be back later this afternoon with everything from Kirk Cousins dive-ins, the day before the draft, all the latest news on the flagship show. Check that out at 4 p.m. Eastern time live on youtube.com/All Steelers Talk. You could also find this and all of our other podcasts anywhere you get your audio downloads, and you can find all my work at si.com/NFL/Steelers. I'll be back later. With that said, enjoy another beautiful day in the Berg. Peace.